on here is we now have 12 minutes for discussion. I know it's short, but we'll try to make it productive. And what I would like to do now is to dive into the crowd, to look for some city representatives and to continue with the sharing. First of all, I'd like to go to Mr. Drogos from Poland, Warsaw. Can you say a few words about what's happening in your city? What type of strategies you have to promote electric vehicles, please?
Hello, good afternoon. Warsaw is, I can say, fresh partner in the e-mobility. We established a project connected with electric vehicles in last year. Together with private partners, they established a cluster and they obtained the money from the European Union. And thanks to this, we have in Warsaw project with the plan to have about 100 charging points on the city area and to have for the tests 6 electric vehicles to prove and to feel the taste of this e-mobility among city institutions like police, like public transportation control, and that kind of groups. And this project is still ongoing, and we have now about 20 charging points in our city, and then we have these vehicles in our city fleet last 2 months. So during this period, this year, we promote electric mobility among citizens, among media, and we think that now we have a lot of new interesting partners, potential partners for the development of this e-mobility. And for instance, we are trying to establish a special platform for kind of friendship of electric mobility to know who pays an interest in this area, who would like to cooperate with us. And with some partners, we are establishing a new forms of cooperation, for instance, with large energy companies like RWE or Vattenfall. And the other aspect is we found that this cluster working outside from the city is not a tool in our hands. So it's not easy to cooperate with them in some aspects. So it will be good to have our own cluster. So together with Warsaw University of Technology and together with some other institutions, we are trying to create this year a cluster for promotion of electric vehicles. And we think that it will be quite interesting and successful work, not only to prove simple electric mobility. We think about new technologies. We think about, for instance, induction charging systems. And of course, in our idea is to have electric buses in our city. And the only one problem, you know this very well, this is the price of this. And we are expecting a lot of new ideas and a lot of new manufacturing company, because it could create lower prices. We have one small company in Poland. It's produced kind of rickshaw vehicles on 3 wheels. Very interesting, but very expensive. It costs about 15,000 euros. And we have only a few in Warsaw, and about 500 is somewhere in Germany and in Switzerland, not in Poland, unfortunately. But I think that it creates knowledge, and it gives opportunity to work not only with the idea to work with the real world of electric mobility. Thank you very much.
Well, isn't that exciting? Thank you so much, Mr. Drogos. Now, let me move on to South America. From Brazil, we have Luciana. I'm sure for Brazil, they have every reasons to move into electric mobility because of the 2014 World Cup, as well as the upcoming Olympic Games, right? So any good news from Rio, from Brazil?
Oh yes, it's well known that Brazil is known for biofuels. However, we believe that biofuels are now just a step towards something more electric. And we have plans to close our city center to make a green park. And because the city center concentrates large amounts of emissions in the city, and then all the circulation would be made through electric buses, which would integrate with light rail, leading to our port area. The matter is that our problem is that our emissions are rising rapidly because we've had some economic advantages lately. The country is growing too fast, and then our fleet is growing extremely fast. Therefore, we intend to put the charging stations in the city center to give out the example to the public. And we have Brazilian technology for electric cars. It's incipient. It's still in the Foz do Iguaçu, well, that's by integrating the city. We think that with the subway and electric vehicles, we can reduce emissions and noise pollution, which is causing serious health problems. And we also have targets for 2020, which should be 20% reductions in the levels of 1995 for carbon emissions. And so that's our news for now. We are still in very early stages of planning, mostly because we have this culture of using biofuels, you see. But 2 years from now, we'll probably have some very interesting news.
Excellent. Okay? Thank you so much. Thank you. Now, I would like to move on to Charles, representing the Council, International Council on Clean Transportation of USA. Now, Charles, I understand that you've done a lot of work in the US as well as you've been traveling around the world to look at different systems. Can you share with us any of your experience, especially with respect to electric mobility, please?
Yes, thank you very much. Before becoming a consultant, I worked at the California Air Resources Board for many years. And you may or may not know, but beginning in 1990, California passed a regulation requiring a certain number of vehicles, zero-emission vehicles, to be sold. That regulation had to be modified over time because of various issues and problems that arose. And so I think the word, I think your confidence and credibility are perfect words looking outward. What I would say kind of internally, a word to remember is patience. And I know that's difficult with political leadership and political prestige on the line, and we have, in California, we certainly face this. You may have seen the movie Who Killed the Electric Car, and it's reports of its death are premature. It's exciting to see how much is happening now, but the reality is to get the scale that's going to actually result in environmental improvements, it's going to take a long time, and things need to happen. The costs need to come down, infrastructure needs to be put into place, the grid needs to be cleaned up, the electricity grid needs to be cleaned up, and you need to move beyond the early adopters to this mass range of customers. And I don't mean to make it sound like this can't happen. I personally believe it is happening and will happen, but I would just urge some caution and some patience, because it's going to take a while. There's going to be hiccups along the way. We in California certainly demonstrated that, and learned some hard lessons, but it's an exciting time, and I wish all of you well. Thanks.
Thank you, Chuck. Now, I'm seeing a lot of itchy hands from the floor, so I think I will now ask for maybe 1 or 2 questions or comments. It could be directed to Mark or any of the other presenters. So anyone who would like to say something or ask a question, please raise your hand.
Yes, John Miles, I'm with Arup. I've got a question for Mark, who made the presentation, please. You talked about the number of charging points being put out and the need to establish confidence, but one of the speakers from Poland just a few moments ago talked about other technologies than cable, and I just wondered whether London has any plans to look at things like induction power transfer and other types of transfer device.
Yes, there are plans to look at it, but I think, to be honest, for the next, 12 months or so, we'll be focused on trying to get well, if not standard rate, sort of between 3 kilowatt to perhaps 7 kilowatt charging points in place, and then sort of working with a couple of our partners, Nissan in particular, to try and get a few rapid charging facilities around London as well. We see that induction charging, for instance, is something which provides really unique opportunities for some vehicle fleets. Taxis and buses are great examples of that. If you can put in some inductive charging at bus stops in taxi ranks, well, this is a way that you can really clean up these particular fleets quite quickly. But it is at the development stage, and I think we're working with a couple of universities to try and understand exactly when is the right time to start trialing this.
京都から来ました。で、いろんなスーパーマーケットとかで、充電されている電気料金を聞きたいんですけれども、コスト。
I am from city of Kyoto, and I would like to ask a question to the city of London about your planned charging station. How much are you going to charge for the electricity charged? What is the tariff?
To begin with, we're looking at a fixed fee membership scheme. So the idea for the very early adopters will be you will pay £100 a year. That will get you a smart card that provides you with access to all of the publicly accessible charging points in London, and you'll get your power for free. Now, clearly, that model isn't sustainable as you move forward, but we think that it's a very simple way of trying to get scale early on. Now, what we're trying to do is to ensure that the back office systems that we build are capable of moving to a pay-as-you-charge model once the volume of vehicles warrants making that move and warrants the cost associated with a much more complex back office system, a clearinghouse.
Mark, thanks for the presentation. My name is Chris Cherry from University of Tennessee. I'm curious that a lot of your incentives are related to using the vehicle, like congestion charges, parking fees, free electricity, or pay once electricity, then free electricity. What was the motivation to do that instead of giving incentives on the vehicle purchase, for instance? Because once somebody starts using this more and more, and they have no incentive to still take transit like they used to, perhaps, you might cancel a lot of your benefits out eventually.
I guess it's sort of almost a two-part question. So the reason why we've focused on the incentives that we have done and not an upfront sort of rebate is because the national government in the UK has put in place a purchase incentive. So for people buying an electric vehicle, they'll get £5,000 off the cost of that vehicle. So our policies have tried to supplement those policies that are in place elsewhere. But you're right, you do have to keep a close eye on how your incentives are working. An example in London, in the very central part of London, was that the local borough that operates there provided free charging for people driving in with an electric vehicle. And they actually observed people stopping taking public transport, buying an electric vehicle and driving into central London. And that has knock-on effects with congestion and all other sorts of problems. So that trial has stopped now and that incentive has been removed. So I think, we'll have to try things, see how they work, and if they're working, great. If they're not, well, then we'll have to stop it and try something else. So I think being very flexible and I think that provides another challenge. You have to be very transparent to people as well, because you have that problem if you promise people one thing, they go out, they buy a vehicle on the basis of that promise, and then you change it. Well, they're within their rights to feel slightly miffed about it. So I think being credible throughout the process and sort of saying, well, we will do this for this period of time, make your decision on that basis.
Thank you, Mark. Please give a big hand to Mark again for his presentation and also for all the contributors during the discussion. Thank you. Over to you, Steve.